Abdul was not born in a very wealthy family. He belonged to a very middle class, normal Tamil family, and he was a Muslim who lived in the town of Rameshwaram. It is a very small town in South India, and this is the place where he lived, and he was a Muslim. Now his parents were very kind and hardworking. So he was not born into very smart and very intelligent, intellectual family. His family was very, very simple and very kind-hearted. They were not among those people who were very selfish or mean. As we see his father also, he was very simple and very kind man. Now his father, his name was Jainuddin, and who was very simple, and though he was not rich and educated, he was naturally wise. His father, he was not at all a rich person. He was a very normal middle class family, but he was very educated and he was naturally very wise. We are talking about his father, who was very wise person, and that is the reason that Abdul was also very wise. He has inherited all the wise characteristics from his father. Now his father, he avoided all the luxuries. So because he was not very rich person, so he was not able to give like great luxuries to his kids, but has provided all the daily necessities. So that's why Kalam also says that his childhood was secure both materially as well as emotionally. Now this line is very important, and several times it is also being the question is being put on this line from your exam point of view. Now why Kalam says that his life was secure both materially as well as emotionally? Because his parents, his father and mother, they knew it very well that they cannot give lot of materialistic things to their kids, because they were not very well off, they were not very wealthy person, they were not rich enough to give lot of luxuries to their kids. But they have given all the things that was necessity, or that for a comfortable life basically. So his parents has provided everything that a child needs, or that gives a comfort to child, they have given. So that's why materially, in terms of money basically, in terms of money, his childhood was secure, and emotionally, because his parents were kind enough and were always there to give emotional support. By the end of the story, you will also read that how his parents were time and again giving him emotional support, because for a Muslim in a country like India, it was a little bit difficult part to live in a country like India. We will be seeing what kind of discrimination he has also gone through as a kid. Now when the Second World War broke, now this is the time when the Second World War broke down, and the impact was also in some parts of India. Now as the Second World War happened, so the demand of tamarind seeds, tamarind is basically imli, okay, so demand of tamarind seeds rose. Ekdam se the demand of these seeds, it just rise up. And Kalam, what he did, he started collecting all the seeds and sold it to earn an anna. Anna is basically Indian currency. Now we talk in the terms of rupees. So anna was a very small amount of currency which was used at that time before independence, if we see. Now what happened, as the demand of tamarind seeds rose, so Kalam thought that it is a good way to earn some pocket money, because as we have read that his parents were not wealthy enough. So Kalam would actually work and get a little bit of pocket money so that he could actually cater with his daily expenses, and that's how he earned anna. Now later also he talks about when he started working also. Now there was one cousin of Kalam, his name was Samsuddin, who used to distribute newspaper. So at that time, like now we have lot of great newspapers, the Hindu, Tribune, Times of India, Dainik Jagran, and so many newspapers we have. At that time, like before independence, there was only one newspaper which was very popular, that is Dinamini. So that newspaper he used to sold, and his not sold basically. So as the war was broke off, and they lived in a very small town, so the train would not stop at their town, and the train which was carrying all the newspaper would just throw newspapers. So what Kalam would do, his cousin asked Kalam to collect the newspapers and catch the newspapers and give it to him, and then his cousin would actually sold it off. And that's how Kalam started earning. By just catching the newspapers and giving it to his cousin, he started earning money, and that was his actually first wage. Now this is again a very important question, that what was Kalam's first wage? Though he earned money from tamarind seeds, but first wage is basically salary. Uski first salary was from this newspaper. When he started working with his cousin and he started catching newspaper, that was his first wage. Now we see that the close friends of Abdul was Ramananda Shastri, again who is a Muslim, Hindu, and his name also tells that he was basically a Pandit. Arvindan, again it is Hindu name, and Siv Prakashan. So all these three were his best friends, very close friends of Abdul. Now if we see from what kind of friends Abdul had, he was a Muslim and he had his Hindus friend, which was not a big problem for neither for him and neither for his friends, because they were very open-minded, and so were their families. That though they belonged to a very small town and though they were not very well educated as compared to the whole entire world, but still we see there is a very positive thing, that they never discriminated. There was no discrimination of religion or all these religion, and nothing hampered their friendship. But one day what happened, Kalam was in 5th standard and he was sitting with his friend. So a new teacher came in class, and when she saw that there's a Hindu boy who is sitting to a Muslim boy who is wearing a hat on his head, that is Abdul. So the teacher could not tolerate it. Teacher was very furious that how is it possible that a Hindu boy is sitting with the Muslim boy. So as teacher could not tolerate it, so teacher asked Kalam to stand up and go and sit on the last bench. Now this incident was something had a deep impact on a kid who is just in 5th standard. And so similarly, his friend whom he was actually sitting with, Ramananda, he started even weeping at this incident. He started crying that why teacher is doing us when we are not doing it, when our parents are not doing it, then why teacher who has come is doing this with us. So they did not like the behavior, and this incident basically had a very deep impression on even Kalam's mind, because Kalam was somebody who faced discrimination for the very first time in his life. So it had a very great deep impression that he did, which he obviously did not like at all. And he wanted to remove that people should not be so biased. People should not discriminate each other on the basis of religion. On any religious background, it should not be done. So Kalam was very disturbed by it, and so was even his friend Ramananda. And that's why they both narrated the incident to their parents. So when they went home, they told their parents also did not like the behavior of the teacher, obviously. And then they said that they went to the school, they spoke to the teacher, and especially Ramananda's father, he called the teacher and asked her not to spread any communal hatred or social inequality. This is again very important. Communal hatred is basically hatred for any part of community. Okay, any section of community or any part of community, when people they start having hatred towards that particular category. Like here we see what is happening, what teacher is doing. Teacher is basically spreading hatred for Muslims. Okay, so that is again a communal hatred, because Muslim is basically a community here and teacher is spreading hatred towards it. Or social inequality. Social inequality again means कि जब society में some part or some category or some class of the people who are not being treated equally is social inequality. So teacher again was doing this thing, which Ramananda's father did not like, and he went to complain against the teacher. Now he also demanded one more thing from the school authority, that was either the teacher will apologize or say sorry to the kids for her behavior, or she has to leave the school. Otherwise she cannot teach in the school, in a school where we should be teaching equality to the kids instead of inequality, and teachers should not be spreading this kind of hatred. So that's why his father requested the principal to either to ask the teacher to leave the school, or she should be sorry for her behavior. After the complaint against the teacher realized her behavior. She realized that she was actually doing wrong thing. She was actually not doing right by spreading hatred among these little kids. She realized it and she even reformed his behavior. So the teacher realized, and reformed means tried to improve his behavior. That's what the teacher exactly did, and which was a very good part on the behalf of teacher, and that's why people easily they have forgiven her. Now there was one more incident which happens in Kalam's life. Again we can see such incident where a discrimination is being done with a very small kid has deep impact, and it was not just once, it was many times he has faced it. Now the second time which is another incident which Kalam has narrated was with his science teacher. So his science teacher, Mr. Iyer, was a very kind and generous man who was who belonged to Orthodox Hindu Brahmin family. So he was Brahmin and he was Orthodox, so somebody who was very conservative, who has some principles, traditions and values, and who stick to those principles and values. So that is an Orthodox person. But there was something very good in his teacher, and that was he treated everybody with equality. He never did any type of discrimination with his students or with anybody for the matter. He thought that everyone is equal and should be regarded with respect and equality. Now a teacher, when he saw that this discrimination happened with Kalam, and teacher, when he knew that he's a Muslim guy and how Muslims are being treated in our country, so he invited Kalam for a meal in his house. So he asked Kalam that he would like if Kalam would come for a meal in his house. Now to invite a Muslim boy or to invite any lower caste in a house at that period of time was a huge thing. People did not like it at all. People did not consider that a right thing, a right way to call somebody else, like from a lower caste or from another religion, to their house. But we see one thing here, that this teacher, Mr. Iyer, was a very open-minded person, and that's why he was fine with calling Kalam and sharing his views and listening to Kalam. Now his wife, Mr. Iyer's wife, who was a conservative herself, she did not like this idea of Mr. Iyer and she refused to serve Kalam inside her kitchen. Now how people used to dine, now you have to think that we are not talking about the current time. Now we do not even have this discrimination. We are talking about the time that is before the independence or during the independence time, when the discrimination was very high, and that is the reason how Britishers, they also came to India and they had spread their roots by this discrimination method only. They divided the people of India. Now when this is the time when this division was at the peak, okay, and that's the time when people, they realized that we should stop this discrimination. Now during that time, people were not having a fine dining tables in dining room where they used to sit and eat their food. Especially we are talking about middle class families. तो नहीं होता था. Middle class families used to sit inside the kitchen on the floor, and their food was actually served. And now what happened, Mrs. Iyer's wife refused to serve food to Kalam in her kitchen. So she said that I'll not let a Muslim boy enter into my kitchen. I would rather, if you want to give him food, you can make him sit outside and give him food, but I will not let him enter my kitchen. This is what Mrs. Iyer actually said. To which Mr. Iyer got very angry. He got very angry and aggressive that why my wife is doing this kind of discrimination. Why? When I am not believing it and I am giving the right teachings to the world, my wife is on contrary, she is believing in all these things. And he himself served meal to young Kalam. So as his wife refused, so he took out all the food and he started serving Kalam. Now after winding up, after they have finished their meal, now Mr. Iyer again invited Kalam for dinner the following weekend. So he said that next weekend he would again like to invite Kalam for dinner. Now we see that this time the behavior of Mrs. Iyer would be quite different. So next time Mrs. Iyer served him food in her kitchen. Now she finally understood that this discrimination should not exist, and Kalam is just a little kid who should not go by all these things, and that's why she actually gave food to him, served food to him. Now we see that there was a huge change in the behavior of Mrs. Iyer, which was a very good thing. And why this change happened? It was because of people of India. They started realizing when the fight for the freedom actually began. People, they wanted independence, and they have actually understood that Britishers, how they have invaded our country is by dividing us. And if we want freedom, there's only one way we can get it, and that is unity. And this is probably one of the things that Mrs. Iyer have also understood. Now, whole country was hoping for India's freedom. Now, everybody was wanted freedom, and everybody was looking and fighting in their own ways to attain independence, to attain freedom. Now, and at the end of the story, we see that Kalam made a request to his father that when his high school was finished, he wanted to study further, but not in a small town. He wanted to explore a good city, big city, and that's why he has chosen Ramanathpuram, which was not a very small town or a village. He wanted to move to a city to get a higher education, and that's what he asked his father. So his father was eventually ready for it, but his mother was quite dicey. She did not want to send Kalam away, especially at this period of time when there was a lot of chaos in our country. But then there's something his father said, which is again a very important line of the story. He agreed to it, and he said that parents should not thrust their ideas upon their children as they have their own thinking. So this is again very important thing which he said, that parents should understand that they have given birth to the child, but a child has his own ideas, his own ideologies, his own life, and parents should not force their own ideas upon the children. Children are free, should be set free to do whatever they want in their life, and parents should not thrust their own ideologies, their own ideas upon kids. They should let children freely move and do and learn whatever they want. So this is what his father told Kalam to do, and this is exactly what Kalam afterwards did. And that's how they sent Kalam for higher studies in outside the village. And that's the end of the story.